Joining us now is the president and founder of the Eurasia Group and G0 Media, Ian Bremmer. Ian, good to have you.
Okay, good to see you.
What should Donald Trump be doing with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today? How should he be pressing him on the subject of Gaza?
Well, he truly does want to end wars. I think that that's been pretty consistent over the course of the first 6 months of his second administration. And so far, the Israeli prime minister has not had any of it. Not only has Trump given great support to the Israeli military over the last months, allowing for a historic victory over Iran, but they've also not cut them back on Gaza at all. And so essentially, you've got Netanyahu now in his strongest political position in years, certainly strongest since well before the terrorist attacks of October 7th and the demonstrations before that had occurred across the country against his rule. He now has the ability to lose his right-wing coalition and call new snap elections, and within a few months have a coalition with the center in Israel. That would be a win for everyone. That'd be a win in the Middle East. That would be a possibility of even starting to talk about a two-state solution again. It'd be a win for the Gulf states. It'd be a win for the Israeli people. And it would be a win for Trump. Because the problem has been that the Israeli prime minister has been locked in a government with a group of fascists on the far right. And that has given them veto power over the way that this war in Gaza has been fought. Everyone in the United States wants this war to be over. And what it requires politically inside Israel is for Bibi to be sufficiently strong to jettison these anti-democratic forces. He now has that capacity, and Trump is in a position to facilitate it. I don't even think it requires that much pressure because the hard work has already been done. What it requires is the joint announcement. It requires the Oval Office visit. It requires Trump, bucking this guy up, which he's had no problem doing in his first term or this term. I think this is set up fairly well for a ceasefire.
Does Benjamin Netanyahu want a two-state solution? You mentioned that. I mean, even if he moves to the center, would he want that? Or does Donald Trump need to pressure him into that? And then does Donald Trump think that a two-state solution is the answer? Because that has always been the conversation, but it has not been the conversation with Donald Trump, and it has not been the conversation. It's not been something that Netanyahu has been a fan of, even when he wasn't a part of this, as you called it, fascist coalition government.
Well, again, the coalition government isn't fascist. Just
the right
far
wing,
right,
excuse me,
it's connected to. I mean, you wouldn't describe Likud that way, certainly.
No.
Look, Donald Trump was in favor of a two-state solution in a full-throated way. It's how he got the Abraham Accords done. The Bahrain conference that they held, the Jared Kushner developed roadmap, that was a two-state solution. That was a full state for the Palestinians. Now, since Trump has become president this time around, he said that time has passed. He no longer supports a two-state solution. A lot of the Gulf leaders privately are flexible in what that means. Does self-governance mean a state? Does it mean that they have to have a military? Costa Rica has a state. They don't have a military. There are plenty of examples of that. The Israelis are saying, well, we have to make sure that they couldn't be in a position where they could launch attacks against Israel. I think the modality here is to be discussed and debated. But the idea that the Palestinians need to be able to govern their own territory and that Hamas cannot be a part of that governance process, that is something that everyone agrees on, except for the far right in Bibi's government. And that's why he has fought the war he has, is because otherwise he loses his government partners, he loses power, someone else comes in, he goes to jail.
Yeah.
So, now that is no longer the operating principle in Israeli domestic politics, I think a lot has been opened up for how one might negotiate with the Palestinians going forward, the role that the Gulf states, the Europeans, the Americans might play.
All right, Ian Bremmer, as always, really good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.